In the quiet moments of reflection, we often come to realize that words are not just simple sounds escaping our lips. They carry the weight of intentions, emotions, and consequences. What we say, or fail to say, shapes our world and the world of those around us. In Buddhism, we are reminded that every word is an extension of our inner state, a mirror reflecting the chaos or calm within. Have you ever felt the sting of thoughtless words? Or worse, the hollow ache of silence where understanding should have been? We all have. Words have the power to heal or to harm, to bind us together or push us further apart. And it is in this space, where our words meet the world, that we must exercise the greatest care. We must understand what should never be said, not because we fear offending, but because our words can be weapons, ones that cut deep, far beyond what we can see. But why should we care? Because every time we speak without intention, we risk planting seeds of suffering. We risk distorting reality, harming both ourselves and others. In Zen, silence is often revered, but when we must speak, our words should be born of wisdom and compassion, grounded in understanding. Let us journey together through the things we should never say, those careless words that disconnect us from others and from ourselves, those words that diminish the space of self-love and the bonds we hold with the world. 1. You're not enough. There is a darkness that lingers in these words. When we tell someone they are not enough, we rob them of the light they carry within, a light they may not even know exists. This phrase not only wounds the recipient, but it also reflects the speaker's inner turmoil. In Zen practice, we learn that to judge another is to expose our own insecurities, our own sense of lack. This simple sentence carries an insidious message. I see your flaws, and I choose to amplify them. But what it truly means is, I am struggling with my own sense of inadequacy, and I project it onto you. When we utter these words, we deny the inherent value of the person standing before us. Zen teaches us that every person, regardless of their perceived shortcomings, holds the potential for enlightenment. To tell someone they are not enough is to ignore the infinite potential that exists within them and within ourselves. This phrase should never be said, not because it's cruel, but because it is fundamentally untrue. We are all enough as we are in this very moment. Imagine a monk and his disciple, the latter always struggling with self-doubt. One day, the disciple laments, "Master, I am not enough to reach enlightenment." The master, gazing into the vastness of the mountains, simply replies, "Do you hear the mountains say, it is not tall enough?" Sometimes wisdom lies in realizing that what we are is already complete, much like the mountain, standing silently but ever present. 2. I hate you. Hatred is a fire that consumes the one who carries it more than the one it is directed toward. These words may seem powerful, a means of releasing pent-up emotion, but in reality, they poison the speaker's heart. To say, "I hate you," is to sever the connection we share with the world, to build walls that isolate us in our suffering. In Buddhist thought, hatred is one of the 3 poisons, alongside greed and ignorance. When we speak words of hate, we feed the flame that burns within us, a flame that eventually devours our peace, our balance. But where does this hate come from? It often arises from pain, from unmet expectations, from the wounds we refuse to heal. Zen teaches that we must observe these feelings without becoming attached to them, without letting them take root. Instead of saying, "I hate you," consider what it is you are truly expressing. Is it fear? Is it hurt? Is it the inability to forgive? In the stillness of self-reflection, we often discover that what we hate in others is a reflection of what we hate within ourselves. The Buddha once said, "Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned." These words should never escape our lips, not because of the harm they may cause others, but because of the harm they surely cause us. Visualize a fire raging within a person's soul. They wish to extinguish it by casting it outward, but every time they throw a spark of hatred, it only burns hotter inside. It is not through the casting of flames that the fire dies, but through the water of understanding, patience, and love. 3. You'll never change. To declare that someone will never change is to trap them in a prison of your own making. It is to ignore the very essence of what it means to be human, our ability to grow, to evolve, to transcend our current state. Buddhism teaches that life is impermanent, ever flowing like a river. To say, "You'll never change," is to deny this universal truth. When we tell someone they are fixed in their ways, we strip them of hope, of the possibility that tomorrow could bring a new beginning. But perhaps more damaging than the words we speak to others are the times we say this to ourselves: "I'll never change." In these moments, we abandon the idea that growth is possible, and we cement ourselves in our current suffering. In Zen, we learn to release the attachments that hold us back, including the attachment to our present self. Change is inevitable, but it is our responsibility to guide it in the direction of peace and wisdom. Never say these words, for in doing so, you limit not just the person before you, but your own potential for transformation. We are all in a constant state of becoming, and to deny that is to live in a world that does not exist, a static world where growth is stunted and possibilities die. Picture a river winding its way through the mountains. One who stands on the shore and declares the river will never change its course is blind to the forces shaping it every moment. We are like that river, ever moving, ever adapting. To say otherwise is to deny the reality of our nature. 4. It's your fault. In the moments of frustration and pain, we often seek someone to blame, as if assigning responsibility will ease our own discomfort. "It's your fault" is a weapon of avoidance, a way to cast our suffering onto others so we don't have to bear its weight ourselves. Yet, in Buddhism, we are taught that blame is a form of delusion. It distracts us from the deeper truth. Suffering is inevitable, and often, it is no one's fault. When we speak these words, we deny a crucial aspect of human existence: interconnectedness. In Zen, there is no separation between the self and others. We are all part of the same web of life. To say, "It's your fault," is to sever that connection, to isolate the other person as the sole bearer of responsibility for shared experiences. But if we look deeper, we will see that responsibility, like life itself, is fluid. We are all responsible for our reactions, our emotions, and the way we interpret the world. Instead of casting blame, Buddhism invites us to look inward. What part of this situation do we control? How can we respond with wisdom rather than react out of anger or fear? In acknowledging our own role, we begin to dissolve the sharp edges of blame. The Buddha said, "Let a man overcome anger by love. Let him overcome evil by good." These words remind us that blame only perpetuates suffering. Release it, and you release yourself from the cycle of pain. Imagine a mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces. Each shard reflects only a fragment of reality, distorted and incomplete. When we assign blame, we see only a sliver of the truth, fractured by our own perceptions. It is only by gathering all the pieces, by taking responsibility for our part, that we can begin to see the whole picture. 5. You're too sensitive. These words seem harmless, perhaps even a way to offer guidance, but beneath them lies a subtle cruelty. "You're too sensitive" is a dismissal of someone's experience, a way to invalidate their emotions and tell them their feelings are wrong. In Buddhism, we learn that suffering is not measured by external standards. It is a deeply personal experience. What may seem trivial to one person could be profoundly painful to another. By telling someone they are too sensitive, we close the door to empathy and understanding. Zen reminds us that emotions are like waves in the ocean. They rise and fall, but they do not define the ocean itself. When someone is overcome with emotion, it is not our place to judge the size of their wave. Instead, we must sit with them in their experience, offering compassion rather than critique. In dismissing their sensitivity, we are not only denying their reality, but we are also rejecting the opportunity to connect with them on a deeper level. Words like these create distance, where there should be closeness. Instead of dismissing sensitivity, we should honor it. The Buddha taught that understanding others' suffering is a pathway to ending our own. To say you're too sensitive is to block that path, to close ourselves off from the wisdom that empathy brings. Consider the story of a Zen monk who, upon hearing his disciple cry in the night, goes to him and sits silently beside him. The disciple says, "Master, I cry for foolish reasons." The master responds, "There are no foolish reasons for tears, only foolish reasons for ignoring them." Sensitivity, when embraced, becomes a bridge between souls. 6. I don't care. Few phrases carry as much emotional weight as this. When we say, "I don't care," we are expressing indifference, a refusal to engage with someone's pain, joy, or experience. In Buddhism, this indifference is one of the most dangerous states of mind because it signifies a disconnection from the present moment and from our shared humanity. To say, "I don't care," is to shut down the possibility of compassion, to turn away from the very essence of what it means to live mindfully. The Buddha emphasized the importance of loving kindness, metta, a state of unconditional love and care for all beings. When we declare that we do not care, we sever our connection to this principle, and in doing so, we also disconnect from ourselves. Indifference is not strength, it is avoidance. It is far easier to claim we do not care than to sit with the discomfort of someone else's suffering, or even our own. These words should never be spoken because they deny the core Buddhist teaching of interdependence. We are all connected, and what happens to one affects the whole. "I don't care" is a lie we tell ourselves to escape vulnerability, but in truth, to care is our nature. It is in caring that we find our strength, our purpose, and our path toward enlightenment. Philosophical variation. Imagine the world as a vast garden where each person is a single flower. To say, "I don't care," is to refuse to water the garden, to let the flowers wither and die. In Zen, we are the gardeners of this world, and every act of care nurtures not just the flowers, but the soul of the one tending them. 7. I can't forgive you. Forgiveness is not about condoning the wrongs done to us. It is about freeing ourselves from the chains of resentment and anger. To say, "I can't forgive you," is to hold on to those chains, to bind ourselves to the very suffering we wish to escape. In Buddhism, forgiveness is not a gift we give to others. It is a gift we give to ourselves. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When we refuse to forgive, we are the ones who suffer most. Forgiveness is an act of liberation, a way to release the burden of the past and step into the present with a heart unburdened by hatred. These words should never be said because they trap us in a cycle of suffering. They deny us the peace that comes with letting go. To forgive is not to forget, nor is it to excuse. It is to acknowledge the pain and then release it. In doing so, we set ourselves free. A Zen master once told his disciple, "Carrying a grudge is like carrying a heavy stone on your journey. You may feel justified in holding on to it, but eventually it will exhaust you. Drop the stone and you will find the path easier to walk." 8. You'll regret this. This phrase carries a hidden threat, a promise of future pain. It is not only a statement of fact, but also a projection of our own fear onto another. In Buddhism, we are taught to live in the present moment, to release our attachment to the future, and to accept that we cannot control the path of others. When we say, "You'll regret this," we are attempting to manipulate someone's future by instilling fear, rather than allowing them to walk their own path. Regret is a natural part of life, but it is not something to be wielded as a weapon. Instead of predicting regret, Zen invites us to focus on understanding, to guide others with wisdom and compassion, rather than with fear. Think of life as a path through a forest. Each person must navigate their own way, choosing which direction to go. When we say, "You'll regret this," it's like trying to force someone onto a different trail. But the truth is, only they can choose their way, and only they can learn the lessons the forest holds for them. 9. I wish you were different. These words are perhaps the most painful because they convey a deep dissatisfaction with who someone is at their core. Buddhism teaches us to accept things as they are, not as we wish them to be. To say, I wish you were different, is to deny the reality of the present moment and to impose our desires onto someone else's existence. In Zen, we learn that peace comes from accepting things as they are, without judgment or expectation. When we wish for someone to be different, we create suffering, for them and for ourselves. These words should never be spoken because they reject the fundamental truth that everyone is on their own path, and that path is not ours to dictate. A Zen story tells of a disciple who constantly tried to change a tree in the temple garden, trimming its branches, shaping its growth. The master asked, "Why do you alter the tree?" The disciple replied, "To make it perfect." The master smiled and said, "The tree is already perfect, just as it is. It is you who must change." Words are not just sounds, they are seeds. Each word we plant in the hearts of others has the potential to grow into something beautiful or something destructive. In Buddhism, we learn that mindful speech is one of the pillars of a compassionate life. The things we should never say are the things that cause harm, not just to others, but to ourselves. When we speak from a place of love, understanding, and empathy, we create a world where suffering is eased and connections are deepened. The Buddha taught that right speech is a path to ending suffering. Let us walk that path together, choosing our words carefully, knowing that they have the power to heal or to harm. And in doing so, we heal not only those around us, but also ourselves.